Welcome to the David Pakman Show. I am, of course, not David Pakman. I am Benjamin Dixon, host of the podcast, The Benjamin Dixon Show. You can find me anywhere you find podcasts. David is out of town and he will be back tomorrow. And in the meantime, we have a lot of news to cover. Of course, we have to begin the day with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who has once again inserted himself into the legal process surrounding the Mueller probe. I want to bring up a tweet that the president shared early this morning, and this is what he had to say. He said, "This is a terrible situation, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now before it continues to stain our country any further. Bob Mueller is totally conflicted, and his 17 angry Democrats that are doing his dirty work are a disgrace to the United States." That's how he started. He continued with the next tweet. This is what he had to say. He said, "Paul Manafort worked for Ronald Reagan, Bob Dole, and many other highly prominent and respected political leaders. He worked for me for a very short time. Why didn't the government tell me that he was under investigation? These old charges have nothing to do with collusion, a hoax." All right, we'll stop right there with those two tweets. So the president has already, he's done this before. He's inserted himself into the process, but this is the first time that he's directly called for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to put an end to this. You will recall last week and the week before that, Republicans started the process of impeaching Rod Rosenstein because of this investigation. And the president is getting nervous. If you see his behavior patterns, if you see what he's doing, he's making the mistakes, and it's very likely that he is going to implicate himself with his actions at this point. It's the saying, the saying that it's not the crime that gets you, it's the cover up. And that's what the president is doing here. Now, he's, of course, labeling it a witch hunt. That's what he does. He labels everything a hoax. Anything that he disagrees with is considered a hoax. But this is, like I said before, this is the first time that he has outright called for Jeff Sessions to put an end to this. Thankfully, Jeff Sessions doesn't have the ability to put an end to this because he has recused himself from this process. But underneath all of this is what the president is actually trying to do. He's trying to win this in the court of public opinion. He knows that if he can make this issue as hyperpartisan as possible, then it's very likely that nothing will be done, even if Mueller turns up something sensitive, something that implicates him. Now, as it stands right now, there's not a lot of evidence that we've been privy to publicly that implicates the president directly. I think the closest thing we have now is Donald Trump Jr., where it's come out that the president knew about the meeting with Russian operatives at Trump Tower. Previously, Trump Jr. told the Congress that the president did not know about it. And so the highest level of ramifications so far really rests with Donald Trump Jr. and the possibility of perjury. But that still hasn't stopped the president of the United States from being bold enough and brash enough to insert himself in the process in a very direct fashion. This lets you know that we're so far beyond any standardized norms, any sense of protocol, any concern for the appearance of letting justice carry its way out. We're well past that point. At this point, it's a free for all, and the president has decided to wage his war against Bob Mueller and the Department of Justice, his Department of Justice. And before I even finish that sentence, we have to point this out, right? The irony, the biggest irony in all of this is that this is Bob Mueller, who is a Republican, Rod Rosenstein, who is a Republican, or at least was appointed by Republicans. You have a Republican Department of Justice headed up by a Republican Attorney General who was appointed by a Republican president. And they are waging a war against their own, but they're swearing that this is all a result of the Democratic Party. I want to bring up the last tweet from Donald Trump this morning on the issue. He said, "Russian collusion with the Trump campaign, one of the most successful in history, is a total hoax. The Democrats paid for the phony and discredited dossier, which was, along with Comey, McCabe, Stokes, and his lover, the lovely Lisa Page, used to begin the witch hunt. Disgraceful. It's a little difficult reading the president of the United States because of the absurd things that he says. But the fact of the matter is that he's still spreading himself fake news. The dossier, the origins of the dossier goes back to a Republican operative that was trying to do opposition research on Donald Trump. That's been proven, but that doesn't stop the president of the United States from spreading his own fake news, from doing everything that he can to muddy the waters, because he knows this thing to be true. He knows that people who love him and still support him, no matter what he's done so far, they don't care about the truth. They don't care that the dossier actually had origins in the Republican Party. They are going to continue to say the same lie that it started with Hillary Clinton and started with Democrats. They're going to continue to push that because the president of the United States continues to push that same lie. So here we are with stories that in any other administration would be enough to bring that administration to a complete gridlock. But this is the unique strength of Donald Trump. This is the unique ability, his uncanny gift. If he's talented in anything, it's not being a businessman, it's not being a leader, it's his unfettered shamelessness, his ability to go further and further and further to destroy any sense of shame that this country has. And we are not even in a position to actually process this. We're dealing with a president who throws so many different ridiculous situations at us in a single news cycle that we can't even really adjust to consider how significant what just happened really is. I mean, there've been news cycles where in one day we have 5 stories that in any other administration would have brought that administration down. But for Donald Trump, it's just the 12 o'clock news break. And that's his uncanny gift. And this is why when everyone was saying, I don't know if you recall earlier in the administration, people kept tweeting and kept saying, this can't be the new normal. This isn't the new normal. The reality of it is that this is the new normal because we have all gotten adjusted to it. We've all gotten accustomed to the president of the United States being involved in any number of scandals that would have brought down any administration. I don't care, Democrat or Republican. What the president of the United States is mired in right now was enough to bring down any previous administration. And yet he just keeps trudging through his own swamp that he's supposed to be emptying out.